Good evening, friends. This side Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer, Treasury Consulting, and also a venture capitalist. The budget in this country announced on 1st February 2020. And believe me, from 1st February 2020 till which is 7th February 2020, practically 2:30 in the morning, I'm getting almost 1,000+ messages on the WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook, personal calls, and chat messengers like you should make a video on Indian budget. We are looking forward for your review on Indian budget. It is always authentic. Well, first of all, we thank you very much for that love and affection. But I'm sorry for the delay because there is a lot of things which is happening at our company end, and our bandwidth is very limited, right? So we are not a bank who have thousands and thousands of workforce. So we are having limited people. So what we actually do that we always try and shoot videos which are more important, which are in our agenda. And this video is also on our agenda. And you know that we never speaks until we have numbers. So the first problem before shooting any video, or the first step before shooting any video, is to collect the numbers, collate the numbers. First you collect the numbers, then you collate the numbers, and then you make an inference out of it. Like yesterday also I said that all the videos which we make, not like Siraj Rawal, all the data is of others. Now in this whole data, you can see that there are 4 cuttings and 1 complete newspaper. The whole data is not ours. This is by the publication houses. But the inferences which we make out of it is ours. That inferences or that logic is ours, right? So we always give the due credit of data to the publication house. It is not ours. So the majority of the data is taken from, in fact, from 2 sources, one from the Business Standard and one from the Live Mint. So we have taken from 2 sources to complete credit to them. Now, a lot of people came to me and asked that on a personal ground, how do you see budget? I have no personal grudge from any finance minister, neither from late Mr. Jaitley, neither from Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, and definitely nor from the upcoming finance minister, whosoever. I feel that India need a finance minister who is ex-banker and, more importantly, not a degree conscious person. So like Chanda Kochar, Rana Kapoor, Shikha Sharma, and the list is very long. Ravneet Gill, they all are bankers. But are they competent? What Chanda Kochar did, everyone know. What Shikha Sharma did, everyone know. Do not even speak about Rana Kapoor. And what Ravneet Gill right now doing, everyone know. Ravneet Gill reached to a level, if today he talked to his wife that I will take you to a mall coming Sunday, his wife will not trust him that he is saying right or wrong. Because every second statement given by the Ravneet Gill is wrong. Every second, not only wrong, it is factually incorrect. Like today what Ravneet Gill did, Ravneet Gill hired 3 people. Like one, he hired, Anshu Jain. You remember Anshu Jain? He, when I was in EXL, Anshu Jain used to be treated as either left or right hand of the German government. This was the reputation of the Anshu Jain in Deutsche, that people consider Anshu Jain either right or left hand of the, German government. And some people used to call him right hand, some people used to call him left hand. But anyways, whatever hand, he used to be a very, very, very critical person in the German government, or directly reporting to German government. Officially, he was reporting to some of his boss in Deutsche, but all of a sudden, Anshu exited, and God knows what Anshu doing today, and he never come in the media anymore. So Ravneet Gill last salvo is to hire Anshu Jain and make sure that he would be able to arrange not 100 million, 200 million, rather $2 billion to Yes Bank. I think they should try and connect with SoftBank CEO, because when SoftBank can lend $1 billion to Paytm, even knowing that every year Paytm cash burn is closer to $1 billion, then he can definitely lend $2 billion to Yes Bank and take a control. I don't know why Yes Bank do not approaching SoftBank. They should approach SoftBank and Sequoia, because they are the people, those who know how to do the loss-making lending. Else, who will invest in Ola? Who will invest in Paytm? At least a sensible person will definitely not invest, knowing that Paytm annual loss is closer to 4,000 crores. So if today I am investing $1 billion in Paytm, which I did, it means that in less than 2 years, this whole money would be burnt and no profits are there. So if such good deeds can be done by the SoftBank owner, then I think they should contact SoftBank. I don't think there is need to appoint Anshu Jain for that. Maybe they have some valid reasons to appoint Anshu Jain, but anyways. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the budget dynamics in terms of bond market. We would have two videos on the budget. Number one, we need a video on the budget, which is one would be on the bond markets, and one we would be covering about the mutual funds and FPI, foreign portfolio investors. We will not cover about defense spending, social spending, Manrega and all. This is out of my interest. I always cover mathematics. That is why you see a lot of mathematics numbers are around. So let's start with the basics. Every country is composed of four people. Number one, an individual. Number two, a corporate like me. Number three, a super corporate, Reliance Industries Limited and all. Number four, the government himself. Government himself divided into two parts. One is the bodies or the corporates or the organizations, shortly known as PSPs, which is public sector enterprises. In Chinese, it is known as PSC, public sector enterprises, which is owned by government, and another is the tax revenue of the government. So I repeat, there are four people we have in every country. One is the normal public, one is the corporate, one is the super corporates, one is the government. Government divided into two parts. One is the public sector concerns or undertakings, and second is the tax revenue which government get, which is direct tax and indirect tax. Now the whole world is moving towards GST. Even OPEC nations like Dubai and all, they also are having GST in nature, VAT in nature, value added tax. So it means that rather than having multiple taxes, majority of the governments like Chinese, like Singaporean government have GST, Indian have GST. That is a different thing. That today court issue a notice to Infosys and Tech Mahindra asking why there are so many technical glitches you have in a software you designed, which is known as GST. That is an achievement anyways. So every country having GST, and that GST decides the indirect tax of that government. How conducively it is designed and how effective it is, and how easy for a normal person to to pay the indirect tax. All these people earn 100 rupees, spend something and save. Then what happened? The money they save, they invest. And that investment doesn't always mean in government securities. That investment could be anywhere. It could be in gold, it could be in real estate, it could be in ETFs, it could be in equity markets, it could be, some people love keeping cash, which is money, which is hoarding. So we have different ways of how people invest. Like me, I invest in mutual funds. My personal income and surplus and the corporate income, we invest in mutual fund. I don't take equity shares. I don't invest in gold, no real estate. I believe in mutual funds. There are people, those who invest in real estate. Everyone having own thinking. What happened? Good governments across the globe are having positive surplus, which is known as not fiscal deficit, which is known as the surplus. Example, Singapore, example, multiple countries. So what do? Government earns $100 and spends 60, and 40 they transfer to a legal entity which is known as sovereign wealth fund. Now sovereign wealth fund, some countries earn too much because of their natural resources. Example, OPEC, Organization for Petroleum and Exporting Countries. They earn too much because of their petroleum resources, and what they do, they earn too much and they spend too less, that automatically it led to a big saving which they transfer into sovereign wealth fund. Like Kuwait is having sovereign wealth fund, Saudi is having sovereign wealth fund, Qatar Investment Authority, Russian sovereign wealth fund, Chinese sovereign wealth fund, Temasek, and the list is very long, my friends. But the countries like India, who always in fiscal deficit, and they never had an intent to come out of fiscal deficit. Example, many times people ask me, if you were the finance minister, what would be the first step you do? I'm always saying I have no indemnification or no personal grudges with any finance minister. But the first objective, if I would be finance minister, is to close RBI, number one. Number two, create an investment authority who would comprises of traders and technical professional, not like RBI governor. And third, budget is to make sure that we will move from fiscal deficit to fiscal surplus and transfer this money to sovereign wealth fund. Even for that, I need to cut even a single cent of unproductive expenditure. I do cut. That's how my way of thinking. But my way of thinking is not the only way of thinking, because I am no one. I am running a small company. I am not Reliance. So my way of thinking is definitely not considered by the government. Government runs on fiscal deficit, and to meet that fiscal deficit, government needs savings. And that savings is very essential for governments like India. Because if there is no saving, the government will not be able to take the money from the market. Try and understand. Now, you must be thinking that I am a person who not invested in the government bonds, and how government take my saving? It's simple. Once you invest in a bank, so assuming there are two people, person A, person B. So assume Rahul Magan and you, Rakesh Kumar. Rahul Magan do not directly invest in, the government bonds or treasury bill. Rahul Magan invests his personal money with mutual funds. And mutual funds take up a position in small term government bonds, treasury bills, and in some cases cash management bill, because I invest in liquid plus mutual fund. Or sometimes mutual fund keep a small cash position which they deploy with bank, which would end up as SLR. My another person, Rakesh, who do not invest in mutual fund, he invests his money as FD, fixed deposit in a bank, any bank. Every bank is supposed to have, which is SLR, statutory liquid ratio. It is certain percentage of NDTL, net demand and time liabilities, whereby this percentage, I'm not giving you percentage, it is available on the RBI website, whereby this percentage of net demand and time liabilities to be invested in the government securities. It could be government bonds, treasury bonds, treasury notes, treasury bills, or cash management bills. So either directly via this person or indirectly, everyone is taking up a position in the government bonds. But what happens? What happens if this savings start trickling like this, like the glaciers of Ireland? Then the composition of the money which is going inside the market is continue to reduce, which creates a phenomena which in economics known as deficit financing. And what is deficit financing? Government prints the money, because government knows that people are not being able to pay. So what we do, we print the money. When government prints the money, then it creates inflationary impact, because this money is not backed up by the efforts, or simplistically known as goods and services. If today I get money, unlimited money, then I will not work. No one will work. Why do I work if I get unlimited money? If someone tell me in my credit card or my debit card, you spend and I continue to input the money, then I will not work. I love spending. Maybe I become a person who is out of control. Maybe a drug addict, maybe a terrorist, because I do not have value for money. While somebody who have value for money, he work at 3 a.m., 2:30 or 2:45 in the morning, before spending 1 rupee, even though company is cash rich, he thinks several times, because this is hard-earned money. Similarly, in case of deficit financing, the funding which government get is not backed up by the efforts. Since it is not backed up by efforts or goods and services, government will turn spendthrift. In English, the meaning of the spendthrift means even for any unproductive expenditure you do, it doesn't matter. Like in an election, somebody come and say that I will free all farm waivers, I will give farm waivers, I will give this. They know that they are not backed up by the money, they will print that money. This create and more importantly, it impacts monetary aggregates, which is M0, M1, M2, M3, M4 and M5. So it have a negative repercussion throughout the cycle. So the first step is the savings. This is the data which we got for savings. This data say that in 2011, India saving ratio was around 35.13%. It reduced now to almost 31%, which means that around 4.13% of loss, and this is percentage of the GDP. So I repeat that in 2011, the saving ratio, which was gross saving percentage of the GDP, was around 31.13, and now it is around 30.94, which means that around 4.17% of loss. And 4.17% into $2.5 trillion, you compute yourself, you get the value. So this loss is shrinking, which is known as trickling. It means that this money is not coming in the market. There are humongous amount of reasons we have for this, and the biggest reason is the job cuts. Like, name a corporate which is not cutting the job. When this Kaun Banega Crorepati will start, Amitabh Bachchan should ask a question, name which of the following corporates not cut the jobs. Options are Infosys, Capgemini, Cognizant and all. The answer himself is wrong because all three cut the jobs. Almost every company, even public sector concerns, are cutting jobs. Like statement given by Nitin Gadkari that National Highway Authority of India will handle the pink slips to those officers who do not perform appropriately. I doubtful, because the ultimate objective is to give a pink slip to most of the people. In fact, BSNL and MTNL officers or ranks, those who applied or those who agreed for VRS, voluntary retirement scheme, they will get their due compensation next year. You would be surprised to know that in this budget, the allocation for that component to the VRS, to the people who took VRS, is not done. So they will not get in this budget, they will get in next budget. Done. They need to wait for another 1 year for that. This is incredible, India. Since this is decreasing, government left with no option but to do the quantitative easing. That is the only option government is having. Even the best economist of the globe cannot say no to it. Now, this figure is not correct. Why this is not correct? Because this is overall figure. Okay, now let's move to the part 2 of the video. So part 1 of the video, saving. Part 2 of the video, granular figure. This is the granular figure which we have. The granular figure say the net saving by Indian households. Net saving means basically if you have 100 rupees, 60 you spend, 40. The net savings by Indian household dropped to 6.5% of the gross domestic product in 2018 and 19. Dropped to 6.5% of the GDP. I am not saying this, data is saying this. The lowest in at least 8 years. And this is according to the National Statistics Office, shortly known as NSO. Move ahead. With NSO revised gross saving for 2016 and 17 and 17-18 upward to nearly 2 trillion, there was drop in absolute terms. So there is a drop. Now let's compute with numbers. The liabilities in rupee term after demonetization increased. So the liabilities of Indian person increased while the saving decreased. Now let me answer this. Pranav Sen, former chief statistician of India, said that the rise in liabilities is linked to the mudra loans, which were pushed hard by banks to negate the adverse impact of demonetization. Fiscal year 2018 when mudra took off. In this regard, the rise in the household liability could be attributed to banks which by choice expanded their personal loan portfolio as corporate loans started dipping, showing risk aversion. The National Statistics Office and NSO data shows that saving by private non-financial companies too fell in the absolute terms and declined from 10.7% to 9.5%. So practically everywhere the saving is declining. Since savings is declining, liabilities are going up, this would have negative repercussion on the Indian economy. But no one is bothered. Don't worry, you open any media channel, you have only one topic, which is citizenship bill, NRC, Hindu Muslim, and now Ram Mandir. That is. When budget was going on, I have hardly seen a single discussion or single speaker came on the, I would say the TV channel and backed up by this data. Everyone in the coat, suit, tie, clean shave, specs, and sitting like this. And maybe they would have told to their friends, families, girlfriends and wives that take a photo and put it on the Facebook. No one will tell you this data. And this data, by the way, never comes on the first page of the newspaper. This always comes in the last page of the newspaper. Because newspapers are very smart. They know that no one read that. But they do not know there are few idiots like me, those who read complete newspaper every day. Savings going down, percentage of the GDP is going down. It means the funds which are available in the market is coming down. But the problem do not solve here. The problem aggravate from here. And I have the proof. Because I never speak until I have the numbers. This is today's newspaper. In this today's newspaper, I got a data. Yes. This data is on the tax revenue. Now this data suggests gross revenue full year. I will speak last 3 years. Okay, let us compare. Let us compare this. In 2017 and 18, the total gross revenue estimated around 19.19 trillion. 19.1 trillion is 1 lakh crore. 19.19 trillion. And how much we receive? 12.42. Oh. It means there is a deficit of 7 trillion. In 2018-19, we estimated 20.8. We got 13.17. Another deficit of around 7. And in 2019-20, which is just past, the projected deficit is approximately 9 trillion. It means clearly, that the 9 trillion worth of tax revenue would not come to government the way they projected. It means that government don't have the money. And when the government do not have the money, government needs to have money. And every government know that there is a limit to quantitative easing. And since there is a limit to quantitative easing, they will go for another section of revenue, which is sometimes known as non-debt capital receipt by a few economists, and some cases known as the disinvestment revenue. By the way, I love the first, which is non-debt capital receipt, but some cases say disinvestment. In this last budget, The government estimated the non-debt capital receipt or disinvestment target of around 1,15,000 crores. They end up a very mere number, around 12% of that, which is around 18,000 crores something. Now, the entire shortfall is to be borne by the government. Now, this time, government did one thing. Government came up with a, I would say, a jumla, and that jumla is nothing but this. This is the jumla. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, apologies for wrong, it was not intentful. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Wednesday introduced a bill in the Lok Sabha to give effect to the budget announcement to dissolve direct tax dispute involving an aggregate amount 9.32 trillion, which approximately means around 9,32,000 crores. So our finance ministry is saying that the total tax disputes between corporate and Department of Income Tax, either it is direct or indirect, because no specification is given. Sorry, direct tax, it's a direct, no indirect. Direct tax is around 9,32,000 crores. The direct tax Vivad Se Vishwas Bill 2020, very fancy name. The direct tax Vivad Se Vishwas Bill 2020 offered waiver of interest penalties and prosecution for settlement of these disputes. They will have to be pending before the Commissioner Appeal, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal and High Court or the Supreme Court as at 31st January 2020. That already went by. It means that government estimated that they can get a major source of revenue by resolving these taxes. Let me read more. The budget scaled down the direct tax collection target to 11.7 trillion in the revised estimate from 13.35. It means that Finance Ministry himself and the Finance Minister and Madam Finance Minister both in agreement of the fact that direct tax revenue will come down. That is why against the earlier estimate of around 13.35 trillion, they reduce it to 11.7, which is approximately 1.8 decline. Having said that, there are around 4,83,000 cases which are pending to resolve in various tribunals. So 4,83,000 divided by 9.3 trillion, you get some number, you compute yourself. Okay. It means that Finance Minister Madam Nirmala Sitharaman along with government is coming up with the Vivad Se Vishwas Bill 2020, which government estimate they would be able to raise a handsome amount of money out of this. Till what extent government would be successful, I don't know, but let's see. So ultimately the background of this video is that situation is very tough. Number one, the savings are coming down from 35% to around 31%, which means 4% decline. Number two, the household saving is reduced to around 6.5%, which is lowest in 8 years, and after demonetization the liabilities jumped at a very highest extent, which is not good for any country. Number three, government himself acknowledged that around 4,83,000 cases are pending in various tribunals and the total quantum is approximately 9.32 trillion, which is 9,32,000 crores. More importantly, now the scene is government left with government reliance on the bond market is very reduced or very high. You must be thinking how it is very high. Now government left with two sources. Number one, if Indian government hit the bond market the way it's supposed to hit every year, it creates an impact which is known as crowding out. If they do not hit that, they are heavily dependent on another options like this, like the sale non-debt capital receipt, like LIC, maybe UTI, maybe IDBI, maybe BPCL, maybe Air India, and maybe many companies to come. So government himself know that majority of the doors around them are either closed or half closed. Government knows very well. They also know that passing a bill will not resolve the purpose completely. Government knows that. So if government or any IS, intellectual administrative service, It is not Indian administrative service. It is intellectual administrative service. Remember, US do not have IS. Still they are successful. Singapore do not have IS. They are successful. UK do not have IS. They are successful. All the major economies of the globe do not have IS degree, but still they are successful. We have IS, still we are not successful. That is why I call IS as Intellectual Administrative Service. So the Intellectual Administrative Service is thinking that they will get 9.32 lakh crores complete, or even 50% of them, they are highly mistaken. Number one, they will not even get 1/10 of that, because it is Indian bureaucracy, and Indian bureaucracy takes months to move one file from one desk to another desk. Even if the government will push hard, even if our Prime Minister will push hard, then in that case also getting 30% out of it would be a big scene. Expecting more than 50% is something dreaming in a day. Now come the bond market. Then we go over here. According to this data, last year Indian government raised 4.7 Indian government after maturity raised 4.99 trillion, closer to 5 trillion from the market. It means that after doing all payouts of principal, they raised for 4,99,000 crores, which is roughly 5 lakh crores, which is higher than the estimated figure, which is 4,73,000. That is why the GDP, the fiscal deficit of target of 3.3% of GDP is now around 3.8, and there is a lot of action which is happening around the escape clause. And I'll tell you one more funny thing about escape clause, which is that the Fiscal Responsibility and Management Act, FRBM, mandates a lower deficit. In that case, it is a deviation. Section 4, subsection 2, or popularly known as escape clause, said if there is a mechanism for deviation from the estimate fiscal deficit on account of structural reform in the economy. Are we facing any structural reform? I strongly doubt. I have hardly seen a single structural reform by this government except two. Ambani wealth is growing, Adani is growing. So except these two structural reform, I have not seen a single structural reform by this government. Yes, Ambani and Adani are definitely having structural reform because they are growing like this. I still remember in 2014, majority of the foreign banks said no to Adani. They said we will not give you funding, and today Adani is raising money like anything. In fact, few days ago they raised $310 million. Their power company raised around $310 million in the form of private placement, 3 different maturities. And I don't have figures, but I know that the total debt of Adani is growing at a much faster pace. Do we have any Indian media who hold guts and make 1 hour program and invite the people like us and talk about the debt accumulation by Adani? No one. No one. Even this newspaper, forget this, any newspaper cannot talk how the debt is being accumulated, but everyone will target the small people. Now what happens in this year? Government planning to take additional 5.4 trillion, which means for 40,000 crores more than the earlier. Bond market do not have that money. That is for sure. That is 500% sure. And this is where my interpretation come into the picture, and this is where the corporate sector already understood that. If you would have noticed carefully in the last 3 weeks, majority of the Indian corporates have started raising a huge amount of money in the form of dollar bonds and in the form of QIP, qualified institutional placement, basically selling of equity. In fact, today DMart came in public domain and said that they wanted to raise around 4,100 crores via qualified institutional placement, because they know one thing very clearly, that the market do not have the money. Have you noticed any Indian corporate or anyone raise the money in India? Because there is no money. So what this budget is all about is that since the savings are coming down, since there the tax bills, this kind of bills are coming, government is heavily reliant on LIC and all. So government will definitely create something which is known as crowding out impact. And that crowding out impact means that what I envisaged, probably another 2 to 3 meetings of RBI, they will increase the SLR, statutory liquid ratio, and they will push the banks to invest more in the government securities indirectly. Like if I put my FD with the bank, bank will invest this FD in government securities. In fact, if you would have noticed that SEBI already did that, liquid and liquid plus and short-term bonds, short-term duration funds are supposed to invest a percentage of their AUM in the government securities on the name of security. So forget RBI, there is a proxy SLR which is there in mutual fund also. What my view towards this budget is that, I don't know, one important thing which is rightly pointed by this article is that the numbers. Indian government is saying that they are looking to borrow 5.4 trillion, which is 5,40,000 crores this year. I have no trust that this 5,40,000 crore is the right number, because of the fact that the government in India is facing a problem which is trust deficit. In fact, the National Highway Authority of India, the so-called JOL, is also facing trust deficit. Few days ago, there was a complete full page article that came in the media which said that National Statistics Office is not getting their dues. You cannot rely on the number. So the number which is coming from the government is not correct. My interpretation of this budget is that you call this escape clause or you call this section 4 subsection 2. Indian fiscal deficit will rise this year. I'm not sure if the government will change the data series and make it tap or maybe move number here, there, I don't know. I see that the bond yields will rise definitely. It would be a good investment for mutual fund. As the yields would rise, it would have good income for the people like us. I don't expect that RBI can say no to quantitative easing, because if this Chinese virus issue will extend to June, and the probability of extending is very high, in that sense the business will fall. Like today I was reading around 8,000 crores worth of diamonds. The diamond industry of Surat would face, they will face the loss, because their prime market, which is Hong Kong, is more or less closed. And this is a very tentative estimate. Slowly you will get to know that the figures will eventually started coming from February, when people get to know that due to Chinese virus, this is the issue. Around 400 or 500 people died. So if, unfortunately, if this situation will continue, then I think the mess off is on the card. The yields will rise, government will increase the SLR directly or indirectly. SEBI will push mutual fund to allocate more to government securities, and what we can do? Nothing. Corporates are very clear from their side. They are raising heavily funding from dollar bonds. They are raising heavily funding from QIPs, Qualified Institutional Program. Apparently, I see that in this budget, the USP should be how we can move from fiscal deficit to fiscal surplus. This dream is completely shattered. In the last 5 to 6 years, no politics, but the government done nothing to resolve these kind of things. In fact, government himself acknowledged that the total disputed amount is 9.32 trillion, which is 9,32,000. If I would be the Prime Minister or any other senior person, I would have resolved these cases. 9,30,000 crores will come into the system as a fresh blood, will make a lot of sense. You know, when government can underwrite or government can impair thousands of crores in public sector banks on the name of non-performing asset, then government can get this done also. The final last is that if all these failures will come, so eventually if by June you get to know that this bill do not work like most of the bill, the bond market demand higher yield, They will definitely demand, because primary dealers are also smart. They know that they know that their leg is higher and the government leg is lower. They know that they need to raise the money for the government, as government do not have the money. They know this very well. There is no doubt about that. If they demand higher yields, then government left with no option but to do the fiscal deficit, which is LIC, IDBI, UTI, or maybe Air India, BPCL, maybe more companies. Considering all these things and considering the job losses, which more importantly going in India, while banks, financial institutions, hedge funds, the automobile companies, almost everyone is firing, I expect that next year, this savings ratio, which is currently 6.5%, it may get down to 5%. Because ultimately, if the people do not have the job, they will not spend. Because they will not save. So if anyone do not have the job, he will not spend, because forget spending, forget saving, I even cannot spend. And more people in India are joining the joblessness rate. All banks are firing, by the way. It is just the biggest myth the media in India created, that no one is firing, Achhe Din is here, everything is good, but the fact is not the same. I don't rate this budget 2 out of 10. The important issues in the budget are not highlighted appropriately. The dynamics of the bond market not highlighted appropriately. Foreign portfolio investors not treated appropriately. The exchange traded fund on government bond is not a good step. And more importantly, heavy reliance on the bond market is definitely not the good thing. The crowding out is a reality, and the reliance on the non-debt capital received is not a good thing. Overall, I see that bond dynamics is going to be haywire, and probably I hope all the portfolio managers are ready for that. And let's see how this turns up, but I see that fiscal deficit would surely rise by the time the next numbers will come. This is our analysis of the budget with a lot of numbers around, and my mobile number, which is +91 98999242 our fixed income platform, www.fixedincome.global. You're welcome to join our Hedge Fund Academy, which is 182nd platform, wherein we discuss a lot of things about hedge funds. In fact, we started launching around 3 videos per day, which is approximately 90 plus or 100 videos in a month. Thank you very much, and have a great time. Hope you like this video, and a lot of action on the cards.